Hey fellow Tamers and DigiDestined, it's Mike, aka Sinaku from Overground, and today I'm going to be showing off a green deck that I've kind of been tinkering with for the last couple of weeks. What you see in front of you is actually what I took with me to the last PPG event a couple weeks ago. And I did moderately well. I went X3, unfortunately bubbling in the second last round to our good friend George, Spirit TCG. And yeah, the deck ran really smoothly. I was quite happy with how it performed. A lot of the losses I had, well, all of the losses I had, were me basically losing to myself, just making kind of micro decisions that kind of ultimately led to my defeat, like choosing not to block something because I was taking a gamble on my security, or choosing to block something and then finding out that my security could have actually dealt with it. Just little things like that. Green's a very tricky color to play, but it's also very rewarding because of how challenging it is. And I was very excited to play this deck for two reasons. First of all, I've kind of got a little bit of Omnimon fatigue. I've been playing pretty much Omnimon Blue in every competitive event that I entered, and I want to give myself the challenge to do something different. And two, it's a really fun color that kind of plays completely differently from Omnimon Blue. And if there's anything that this whole 1.0 kind of meta and card pool has taught me, is to kind of not get myself locked into one specific style of play, and to kind of branch out and try new styles and kind of get myself accustomed to new ranges and variations on how to play the game. Because as soon as 1.5 drops instead, the meta is going to shift completely, and pretty much the floodgates are going to be wide open. So this is one of the many decks in different colors that I've tried to pick up kind of over the last couple of weeks, over the last couple of months, to try to get myself more knowledgeable and kind of expand my breadth of capabilities throughout the entire card game and throughout the 1.0 meta exclusively, as well as I'm playing the majority of tournaments over webcam and not over something like TTS. So the only events I'm entering are kind of 1.0 exclusive, and so I'm just kind of working within the confines of what I have available to me at the moment. So this deck that you see in front of you right now, it is Titamon Control. Unfortunately, it's pretty cookie cutter, I'll admit. Most green decks now, especially coming out of 1.0, pretty much all look the same, and I understand that this deck is no exception. I also realized that, especially since I'm posting this like 2 weeks late, there's been so many other decks posted between that time frame that actually did top, that was similar to this list, or other decks that have topped other events through other means that are probably looking somewhat similar to this list as well. So what I'm showing today isn't 100% original, but it's just something that I wanted to share because I did get requests a couple weeks ago if I was going to share the list for people that were kind of watching me on various streams. So I'm not going to go into much detail about most of the cards because you've probably heard what all of these cards do a million times, and I'm not going to beat a dead horse. So this video is kind of going to be short and sweet, and we're just going to kind of do a quick run through the entire deck. We'll start, as always, with the Digitamons. We got 4 Tanamon and 1 Freemon. Or is it Frymon? I call it Freemon. Yeah, there's not really much to talk about here. Tanamon, if you've evolved this turn, your Digimon gain plus 1,000, and that's kind of the core strategy of this entire deck, is just getting your Digimon to such high DP levels that they can run over your opponent's Digimon consistently and effectively. So I feel like Tanamon is usually going to be online way more often than Freemon. Freemon does come up, don't get me wrong, but you're generally going to be suspending one Digimon at a time as you kind of control your opponent's front end of the board. One thing to note with Tanamon is that if you Digivolve in the raising area, if you do have a Tanamon up in the main board, it will not trigger because it doesn't actually see the evolution in the raising area happen. That's kind of a bubble that's blocked off for the rest of the game. So Freemon, if you have opponent has 2 more suspended Digimon in play, this Digimon gets plus 2,000. Well, in theory, this should happen more often because this is what the quote-unquote control part of Titamon Control comes from, in terms of making your opponent's Digimon suspended and then plowing through them. It actually doesn't come up nearly quite as often as I would have liked, so I feel like the Tanamon just adds a bit more value in that respect. In further test matches, will the Digi-Egg ratio change? Probably, but just in terms of what I've been played and testing with up to this point, I feel like this ratio is correct. We're going to go through the rookies real quick. So 4 Agumon with the inheritable of gets plus 1,000, 4 of the Goblimon, which is the 2 cost, 3 of the Palmon, which is reveal 3 cards from the top of your deck on play, and you get to add a level 4, which is a champion, and among them add them to your hand, with the rest of the bottom in any order. And 3 of the Tentomon, which has the inheritable when attacking prompt, you get to spend one of your opponent's Digimon with 3,000 or less. Now, in most decks, you'll see they usually play 2 Patamon, unless it's kind of a dedicated like champion rush strategy where they want to play as many Patamon as possible to dig into their champions. I'm playing 3 over 2 just because I'm playing a slimmer champion lineup, so I want to be able to see those champions a bit more consistently. Next, we're going to move on to the champions. So we're maxing out on 4 Vegemon and 4 Kabuterimon. This is because they're the 1-cost evolutions to go into your champion, so they kind of ramp into your higher levels much faster. And then we've only got 3 Woodmon in this list, and that's because, similarly to what we discussed in the Red Gallantmon list last week, or maybe it's this week, I'm not sure when these videos are going up now, This deck is more interested in running over your opponent's stuff, so they generally don't have anything to really attack you with. So you're using your blockers very sparingly, and in this list we also have another blocker in the form of Jerrymon, which we're going to get to. So because we had the extra blocker in a higher evolution slot, I could afford to reduce this champion blocker slot down just a smidge to make room for other cards. You're generally using your blockers in this list to protect your main attackers, that you can kind of keep consistently getting through your opponent's main threats. And in this case, your kind of main attacker and main win condition is Titamon. So you're using your blockers kind of in a different way comparatively to how you would use your blockers in other standard strategies. Next, we're going to go to the ultimates, and it's 4 Lilymon, 3 Okuamon, and 2 Cherrymon. Lilymon is kind of the main centerpiece of this deck alongside Titamon, and Lilymon's inheritable is that when attacking, you get to suspend one of your opponent's Digimon as long as they don't have blocker. This in tandem with Flower Cannon, in tandem with Tentomon, in tandem with your high DP Titamon that you're eventually going to be building up to, allows you to constantly keep your opponent's Digimon in a rested state so that you can attack over them over and over again. Okuamon's inheritable is that if the opponent that it evolves into deletes Digimon by battle and survives, you gain 1 memory. So ideally, the way this deck wants to play is that you generally want to build 2 stacks, either into Titanmon or Puppetmon, depending on how your Puppetmons kind of line up as how you draw them. But you generally want to have 1 stack with Lilymon and then 1 stack with Okuamon. So that way on the first swing with Lilymon, you get to tap the other Digimon that your opponent has, and then you attack with the stack with Okuamon, you get to run that over, gain a memory, and then your turn gets to continue, and you get to keep progressing with your combos. Cherrymon, again, just a blocker. We're not really going to go over that. He's a blocker who can attack without having the 2 memory restriction, and when you combo that with all the other inheritables that you could potentially be giving him in terms of DP buffs, he's an ultimate that could be swinging for upwards of 9,000 or more if he's got Fremon, and or more even with Kabuterimon as a source as well. I didn't really discuss Kabuterimon's inheritable. Yeah, so he's an ultimate that if you need to use him as a blocker, you can. Otherwise, he's an offensive option that will not cost you memory. Just going to double back to Kabuterimon real quick. He has the inheritable that your Digimon get plus 1,000 for every suspended Digimon your opponent has. So again, this goes in tandem with your double stack combo with Lilymon and Okuamon. Every time that you attack with Lilymon, you can suspend a Digimon, which will automatically boost up not only the Digimon who's attacking with Lilymon as the source, but it allows the Digimon who Okuamon is also under to be strong enough, if it also has a Kabuterimon under them, to run over the other Digimon that gets suspended. Again, I'm just kind of burning through this. You've probably heard these discussions a million times, so I'm not really going to go into much detail about them. If you do have any more questions after this list does go up, please feel free to put a comment in the video and ask me anything that you feel that I might have missed or anything like that. So then we're going to go into the champion lineup real quick. We've got 4 Titamon. He is the heart and soul of the deck. He is literally what the deck namesake is. It's what the deck is built around. You always want to build your stack going into a Titamon, and one quick note I want to mention is that this deck plays as many copies of any cheap evolutions that it can. So again, we got 8 of the 1-cost champions, we have 7 of the 2-cost, well, technically 9 of the 2-cost ultimates, and then Titamon himself also costs 2. So green can get into Titamon very quickly and very efficiently because every single evolutionary chain, barring Woodmon, is very, very, very cheap. And off of a 3 memory per turn, which you'll generally get with Mimi, you can always build up to a Titamon off of a rookie and then leave your opponent at 2, which is always a super strong, powerful play, and it's really, really, really consistent. So Titamon, again, combo with all your DP buffs, your Titamon, your Agumon, your Kabuterimon. Your Titamon can see, heights of maybe 15, 16,000. And that's great because Titamon will literally run over absolutely everything in the game, and you never have to worry about Titamon being destroyed by a security check. And that's what's really important, because the way this deck plays, this deck makes sure that you get a Titamon on board and you make sure it sticks. You will constantly be plowing through your opponent's security without fail, without having to worry about it being destroyed, unless it's something like Terraforce, for example, or anything like, any option removal, like Cocytus Breath or another Terra Clusters, depending on what matchup you're playing. But in terms of sheer DP power, this Titamon will generally never die. And if your opponent tries to attack over it on their back foot, you have your blockers to make sure that your Titamon will constantly remain alive. The next 3 megas we're playing are just 3 Puppetmon. Puppetmon is kind of an offensive and a defensive tool as well. Puppetmon can be played from the hand for the full 11 costs that you can suspend one Digimon your opponent controls, and then none of them can unsuspend on the next turn. That's very strong in its own right, but it also acts as a secondary mega you can evolve into this deck. Puppetmon has a 3 cost to evolve, but that doesn't necessarily stop you, because since everything else is so cheap in the deck to evolve into, you'll still get to Puppetmon very quickly. And Puppetmon's one attacking effect makes sure that you'll gain 1 memory every time he declares an attack. And again, comboing up with all the DP buffs, your Puppetmon can reach, maybe 12, 13,000 as well. which is very, very, very powerful. You're generally using Puppetmon to hard play, so that way you can tap your opponent's entire board, and then on the next turn you can start reaping the advantage of all your effects and kind of running over their board to keep them off from attacking your security back as well. The next option lineup, we've got 4 Flower Cannon. Flower Cannon, we've talked about in length in other videos as well, but it's suspend one of your opponent's Digimon for the cost of 2, and if it's hit in your security, you get to suspend your opponent's entire board without blocker. Similarly to Puppetmon, this sets up, this does 2 things for you. First of all, it keeps you alive, because it suspends all your opponent's other potential attackers, and then also allows you to have Digimon that are suspended to attack into, and you can just gobble up with your Titamons or with your other Digimon that you have in play as well. Terra Cluster is in this deck specifically at 3, I should mention, for the Omnimon Blue matchup, basically, specifically. This is just kind of a clean way to deal with your opponent's Omnimon without having to worry about running it over. If you have to run it over, you can generally reach those heights with the right build. This deck was originally also running Hornbuster at one point, but I feel like it wasn't coming up as consistently as I would have liked. So instead, I bumped the Terra Clusters up to 3 to compensate for that. And Terra Clusters, I feel, is a fantastic card. It's removal without necessarily having to destroy, so it can actually get out of certain situations a little bit cleaner. Like, for example, Terra Clusters deals with Millenniumon very well, just in a niche situation. But yeah, Terra Clusters, because Omnimon, generally the way an Omnimon deck plays is that they'll kind of go into their Mega, they'll do kind of a cheeky swing, take a security off of you, and then they go into Omnimon afterwards to end their turn to push you into whatever memory they decide to give you, and then Omnimon generally goes into your turn tapped. So by having a Terra Cluster in hand, you can immediately out the Omnimon as well. And then finally, the last 2 cards in the deck are just 2 Mimi. Mimi is here to prevent you from getting choked, as well as you can take advantage of her very powerful ability, where if you have a level 5 or higher Digimon in play, which you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 available options to you. You can either hatch an extra egg, or you can move another Digimon out of your raising area into play as well. So this, again, does multiple things for you. The main one is that it makes sure that you always have an egg hatched, where if you have a rookie in hand, you always have a Digimon that's ready to move up, that's always ready to threaten your opponent. And depending on how the game is going, the way this deck plays, you're constantly taking your opponent's attacking options away from them, and then with whatever you have remaining, you'll go after their security. And because you constantly have a consistent stream of Digimon constantly coming into play, your opponent is always under the pressure of either getting another security hit, or you having the ability to start building up a next secondary or third or tertiary or fourth stack that could potentially deal with whatever board they're currently threatening you with as well. And the next cool thing about Mimi as well is that Mimi allows you to have a consistent draw engine in this deck, because since you're constantly hatching eggs, if you have rookies in hand, that means you constantly get to play more cards, and you get to keep cycling through your deck through the evolution draw mechanic. So yeah, that is pretty much it for this green deck, this Titamon Control list that I've colloquially called. Again, I know it's nothing to write home about. I know it's nothing really that's breaking the mold right now, and it's fairly cookie cutter compared to other green decks that you've kind of seen on the market right now. But all in all, I'm kind of super happy with how this deck performed. Like I said, a lot of the losses were kind of to myself and just to me kind of misjudging certain situations or having the wrong read in certain situations. And with more practice, I feel like I'll definitely get better with that. So with that in mind, I'm going to end the video here. Again, if you had any comments or questions or wanted to, discuss anything that you see here in front of you, let me know. I will get back to you as soon as I can. If you did like this video, by some, miracle that you didn't find this completely boring compared to what other green decks you've seen within the community, within the great aspect of the internet, go ahead and like the video, and that'd be great. And if you didn't like the video, that's fine too. Give it a thumbs down. Let me know that I need to work on my content a little bit more. And if you haven't already, and you've just found this channel and you like what you see, feel free to subscribe. We do a lot of other deck profiles and gameplay videos, a lot of fun series as well. And yeah, so thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you in the next one.